We have nothing left.
This is our last hope.
The city of Harlow, Pennsylvania, sits in that particular kind of quiet that only January can produce. The kind where the wind doesn't just chill the air, it punishes it. Streets narrow to thin gray corridors between snowbanks. Street lamps throw pale orange halos over empty sidewalks. And on the corner of Merritt Avenue and 5th, the Harlow State Medical Clinic squats behind a chain-link fence like something the city forgot to demolish. It is January 14th, 2003. The time is 11:47 in the evening. Inside the clinic's admissions lobby, a room of cracked linoleum floors, flickering fluorescent lights, and plastic chairs bolted to the wall in rows, a 9-year-old girl sits alone. Her name is Vivian Caldwell. She is wearing a second-hand winter coat, 2 sizes too large, and holding a small brown paper bag that contains everything she now owns: a change of clothes, a worn copy of Gray's Anatomy for Students, with crayon drawings in the margins, and a photograph of herself at age 5, sitting on the shoulders of a man who is smiling like the world will never end. Vivian does not cry. She watches the glass door. Outside, through the fog that has settled on the glass, 2 shapes move, a man and a woman, hurrying with their heads down toward a black Mercedes idling at the curb. The man is tall, silver-haired even at 41, wearing a cashmere overcoat that costs more than the clinic's monthly supply budget. The woman, blonde, manicured, draped in a fur-trimmed coat, does not look back, not once. She opens the passenger door, slides in, and the car glides away from the curb like it was never there. These are Gerald and Constance Caldwell, once among Harlow's most celebrated families. Gerald built his fortune in pharmaceutical distribution. Constance cultivated the social circles that kept that fortune glittering. Together they crafted the appearance of a perfect life: the lakefront estate, the charity galas, the Christmas cards featuring a beaming family of 3. That family of 3 is now a family of 2, because Vivian, their daughter, their blood, has become a problem they have solved. For nearly 2 years, she has been battling lupus nephritis, a rare autoimmune disease that attacks the kidneys with the patience and precision of a slow fire. The treatments are aggressive. The hospital bills have reached $340,000 and climb every month. Gerald's accountant delivered the verdict in November. If they continue paying, the lifestyle, the estate, the portfolio, the image begins to unravel. Gerald and Constance spent 3 weeks deliberating. They arrived at Harlow State Medical Clinic on a Tuesday, told the admissions nurse their daughter needed temporary placement, signed a voluntary relinquishment form, and walked out the door. Inside, Vivian watches the Mercedes until its taillights dissolve into the dark. Then she opens her copy of Gray's Anatomy, finds the page with her crayon drawing of the human kidney, small, bean-shaped, carefully colored in red, and stares at it for a long time. At 12:03 a.m., a woman appears at the end of the hallway. She is 53 years old, broad-shouldered, with close-cropped silver hair and the practiced calm of someone who has absorbed other people's emergencies for 30 years. Her name is Nurse Eleanor Moss, and she is the head of pediatric nursing at Harlow State Medical Clinic. She has seen families crack under financial pressure before. She has never gotten used to it. Eleanor sits down next to Vivian. She does not offer empty comfort. She looks at the crayon drawing and asks, quietly, what the girl knows about kidneys. Vivian tells her everything. Every word she has absorbed during 2 years of medical appointments. Every term she has memorized. Every mechanism she has tried to understand about the disease dismantling her from the inside. She speaks with a precision that makes Eleanor go very still. Eleanor Moss begins the process of becoming Vivian Caldwell's legal guardian 4 days later. It takes 7 months to finalize. During that time, she brings Vivian home every night she isn't on shift, feeds her, monitors her medications, and sits with her through the worst of the flare-ups. On the nights the pain is bad, Eleanor reads to her from medical journals, not to teach, but because Vivian asks. The clinic treats Vivian's lupus nephritis over the following 3 years with the modest but committed resources available to a state facility. She responds, slowly, imperfectly, but she responds. By age 12, she is in partial remission. By age 13, she is studying at a level 3 grades above her peers. By age 15, she has read every medical text in Eleanor's modest apartment library and begun ordering more from a used bookstore downtown, paying with money earned from tutoring neighborhood kids in biology. Eleanor watches all of this with the quiet, anchored satisfaction of someone who has placed a bet on the right thing. She never pushes. She never has to. It is the summer of 2013. Vivian is 19 years old and has just received a full scholarship to the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine, the first in a series of decisions that will reorder the map of healthcare in Harlow, Pennsylvania. But that is not the inciting incident. The inciting incident is a phone call. Vivian is packing her dorm room on the last day of her undergraduate biochemistry program at Penn State when Eleanor calls from Harlow. Her voice is measured. Eleanor's voice is always measured. But there is something underneath it that Vivian has learned to read like a vital sign. Strain. Quiet, controlled strain. Eleanor tells her that Harlow State Medical Clinic is being reviewed for closure. Budget cuts. The state has determined that the facility is operating at an unsustainable loss. The closure is not certain, but it is probable. The timeline is 18 months. Vivian stands in her half-packed room with the phone against her ear. She looks at the wall where she has pinned a photograph. Herself at age 9, sitting in a plastic chair in a lobby with cracked linoleum floors, holding a brown paper bag. She took the photo herself, years later, on the first day she returned to the clinic as a volunteer. She pinned it above her desk so she would always know exactly what she was studying toward. She tells Eleanor she will handle it. Eleanor tells her to focus on medical school. Vivian tells her again, more quietly this time, that she will handle it. She hangs up. She unpacks her MCAT prep books. She sits back down at her desk and studies until 3 a.m. But something has crystallized in her that night. A direction, specific and unalterable, the way only the clearest purposes are. Medicine was always the goal. Now it has a shape. The next decade is not a montage. It is a grind, specific, relentless, and brilliant. Vivian earns her MD from the University of Pennsylvania, with distinctions in nephrology and surgical systems. Her thesis, a 200-page analysis of autoimmune disease management in under-resourced clinical environments, is cited in 3 peer-reviewed journals before she graduates. She completes her residency at Jefferson University Hospital in Philadelphia, where attending physicians begin taking notes during her rounds rather than offering them. She is not universally liked. She is too precise, too efficient, too willing to say the thing that derails comfortable assumptions. But she is trusted, completely, by every patient who moves through her ward. At 29, she publishes her first major breakthrough, a modified immunosuppressive protocol for lupus nephritis patients that reduces kidney deterioration markers by 34% compared to the current standard of care. It is not a cure. It is a measurable, reproducible improvement in the quality and length of lives, and in medicine, that is everything. She begins speaking at conferences, then consulting for hospital systems, then quietly, methodically, doing something no one in her residency cohort anticipated, learning the business of healthcare with the same rigor she applied to the science of it. She studies hospital acquisition law. She takes an executive MBA through Wharton's online program between hospital shifts, completing it in 14 months. She identifies a pattern: private hospitals in mid-sized cities, over-leveraged and undermanaged, consistently failing not because of their medical staff, but because of systemic financial mismanagement at the administrative level. These hospitals have equipment, they have trained personnel, they have patient populations that need them. What they lack is leadership that understands both balance sheets and blood panels. Vivian understands both. At 31, she secures a $12 million private equity investment from a healthcare-focused fund, using her published research as collateral for her vision. She acquires her first failing hospital, Crestwood Regional in suburban Philadelphia, for $4.3 million in a distressed sale. Within 18 months, she has restructured its billing systems, renegotiated its supplier contracts, expanded its emergency capacity, and turned its first operating profit in 6 years. The Philadelphia Inquirer runs a piece on her. She gives a single interview, speaks entirely about patient outcomes, and declines to discuss herself. She acquires 2 more hospitals over the following 4 years, each one larger, each transformation more efficient than the last. The entity she has built, Caldwell Medical Group, named with deliberate, quiet precision, becomes the fastest-growing independent hospital network in the northeastern United States. Sam. Before we continue, let me say a quick prayer for you. Father, I thank you for the person watching this video. I thank you for their desire to learn, grow, and create a better future. I pray that you give them wisdom as they continue on their journey. When they feel overwhelmed, give them peace. When they feel uncertain, give them clarity. When they feel like giving up, give them the strength to keep going. Bless their efforts, their career, their business, their studies, and the goals they're working toward right now. Help them make good decisions and recognize opportunities that can change their lives for the better. Protect their families, guide their steps, and remind them that every small action they take today can lead to something amazing tomorrow. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, let's continue. And then comes the acquisition that is not purely strategic. In 2022, Vivian Caldwell purchases the Harlow Premier Medical Center, the private hospital that was built directly adjacent to the site where Harlow State Medical Clinic once stood, using the clinic's condemned building as its East Wing foundation. It is now a 340-bed facility. It is losing $8 million per year. It has a reputation for turning away patients who cannot cover upfront costs. The purchase price is $31 million. The moment the deed transfers, Vivian sits alone in the new executive suite on the 16th floor and looks out the window at the corner of Merritt Avenue and 5th. The chain-link fence is gone. The cracked linoleum is buried under 12 feet of steel and concrete, but she knows exactly where lobby chair number 3 used to be. She commissions the renovation of the East Wing first. She names it the Eleanor Moss Pediatric Care Center. It is March of 2024. 21 years since a black Mercedes pulled away from a curb in the January dark. A man and a woman arrive at the admissions entrance of Harlow Premier Medical Center, now ranked among the top 5 hospitals in Pennsylvania, and the most admired in the state for its financial assistance programs. The man is 62 now. Gerald Caldwell moves with the careful economy of someone managing pain in both hips. His once silver hair has gone fully white. His cashmere overcoat is long gone. He wears a department store jacket, clean but thin. The woman beside him, Constance, has shed the architecture of her former life, the way old buildings shed their facades. She is gaunt. She carries the particular stillness of someone who has been frightened for a long time. Gerald has late-stage heart disease, a bicuspid aortic valve that has spent the last 3 years failing quietly and is now failing loudly. His cardiologist in Scranton has referred him to Harlow Premier as the nearest facility capable of performing the surgical replacement he needs. Constance has stage 3 kidney disease. The organ has been compromised for years by unmanaged hypertension she didn't treat, because they lost their insurance when Gerald's distribution company collapsed in 2018 under the weight of debt and a federal investigation into billing irregularities. They do not have insurance. They have $4,200 in a joint account and a prayer that the hospital's charity care program will cover the rest. They are assigned to a patient intake coordinator named Marcus Webb, a 26-year-old in blue scrubs who carries himself with the particular brand of calm that Harlow Premier has become known for training into its staff. Marcus processes their intake forms, flags the charity care application, and begins cross-referencing records as part of the hospital's standard new patient protocol. He gets to the surname field. He cross-references it against a field in the system that no one has ever explained to him, but everyone in the administrative department knows is there. A sealed file, marked with a notation from 2022 that reads, Facility History, Director Review Only. Marcus Webb does not open that file. He picks up his phone and calls the office on the 16th floor. Vivian Caldwell is reviewing surgical staffing reports when her assistant delivers the message. She reads Marcus's note twice. Then she sets it down, straightens the papers on her desk with one precise motion, and tells her assistant to bring the Caldwello the executive conference room in 1 hour. She uses the hour to pull the sealed file, review it, and then set it back down. She does not read it. She has it memorized. When Gerald and Constance Caldwell walk into the executive conference room, they see a woman in her early 30s, composed, authoritative, dressed in a charcoal suit with the controlled precision of someone who does not waste motion. She is standing at the head of a long table. Behind her, through the floor-to-ceiling window, is the corner of Merritt Avenue and Fifth. Gerald looks at her the way people look at faces they should recognize but cannot place. Constance places her. She places her in the jaw, the particular set of it. In the eyes, dark brown, direct, carrying a quality that has no sentiment in it. She places her in the hands, folded on the table in front of her, and in the posture, the absolute stillness of a person who has spent her entire life learning to exist in rooms where she did not feel safe. Constance's face goes a color that has no name between white and gray. Vivian does not begin with anger. Anger would be a release, and she has not survived this long by releasing things prematurely. She begins with clarity. She tells them her name. She tells them the date, January 14th, 2003, and the time, 11:47 p.m. She tells them the seat number, third from the left, second row, where she sat and watched a black Mercedes drive away from a curb. She tells them the balance on the medical bill that night. She has the figure memorized, $341,872. Then she opens a folder on the table and slides a document to the center, a single sheet of paper, preserved in a clear protective sleeve. It is the voluntary relinquishment form. Gerald's signature is at the bottom, precise and confident, the signature of a man who had not yet learned that confidence and rightness are not the same thing. Gerald's hands tremble as he looks at it. Constance does not look at it. She is looking at Vivian, and she is crying. Not the performed crying of a woman who has spent decades deploying emotion strategically, but the raw, involuntary grief of someone who has finally arrived at a reckoning they cannot manage. Vivian looks at the tears for a moment. Then she looks away. She tells them she has reviewed their cases. She tells them Gerald's procedure is complex but within the surgical capability of her cardiothoracic team. She tells them Constance's kidney disease is manageable with the right treatment protocol. A protocol, she notes, without any particular inflection, that she helped develop. Then she asks them a single question: why they came to this hospital. Gerald begins to speak, begins the architecture of an explanation that will involve the word circumstances and the phrase "we had no choice." And Vivian raises one hand, just slightly, and he stops. She tells him that she already knows why, that there is no other hospital within 200 miles that has both the surgical capability they need and a charity care program robust enough to absorb two simultaneous major procedures for patients with no coverage. She built it that way. Not for them, she is very clear on this, but so that no patient, regardless of financial situation, would ever sit in a plastic chair in a lobby and watch the only people who were supposed to protect them drive away. She tells them they will receive full care, both of them, at no cost. Gerald breaks down. He says her name, Vivian, in a voice that contains everything he failed to say for 21 years, all compressed into 3 syllables that arrive too late and too small. Vivian picks up the relinquishment form, places it back in the folder, and closes it. She tells him that she is not doing this for them. She is doing it because she chose, a long time ago, to be defined by Eleanor Moss and not by Gerald and Constance Caldwell. And Eleanor Moss did not turn away sick people because the math was inconvenient. She stands. She tells them their care teams will be in to see them within the hour. Then Vivian Caldwell walks out of the conference room, back to the 16th floor, and returns to her staffing reports. Gerald's aortic valve replacement is performed 11 days later by Dr. Anthony Reyes, Harlow Premier's chief of cardiothoracic surgery, a man Vivian recruited from Johns Hopkins 2 years ago, specifically because he was the best in the country, and she needed the best in the country accessible to people in Harlow, Pennsylvania. The surgery takes 6 hours and 14 minutes. It is successful. Constance begins a targeted immunosuppressive and dialysis program in the nephrology ward, the same ward where Vivian's own research protocol is the standard of care. Her attending physician is Dr. Sarah Nwosu, who studied under Vivian and who administers every procedure with the same methodical compassion that has become the institutional character of Harlow Premier. The Caldwells recover in room 412, a shared room, clean and quietly dignified, in the east wing of the hospital. The East Wing. The Eleanor Moss Pediatric Care Center is across the hall. Its entrance is marked by a bronze plaque that reads, "Named in honor of Eleanor Moss, RN, 1950 to 2021. Who understood that medicine is not a privilege?" Eleanor died of pancreatic cancer 14 months before Vivian completed the hospital acquisition. Vivian was at her bedside. She held Eleanor's hand for the last 4 hours. She has not spoken publicly about Eleanor's death. Not once. Not in any interview or keynote. Because there are things that belong only to the people who lived them. Gerald sees the plaque through the window of room 412 on his third day of recovery. He asks a passing nurse who Eleanor Moss was. The nurse tells him she was the woman who raised Dr. Caldwell. Gerald does not ask another question for the rest of the day. 2 months after discharge, an envelope arrives at the Caldwells' modest rental apartment in Scranton. Inside is a single document, a formal notice from the Caldwell Medical Group announcing the establishment of the Vivian V. Caldwell Fund for Abandoned and Uninsured Pediatric Patients. The fund, seeded with $15 million from Vivian's personal holdings, will provide full coverage medical care, housing assistance, and educational support for children who enter the healthcare system without family support or financial resources. It will operate across all 7 hospitals in the Caldwell Medical Group network. The first beneficiaries are already enrolled. There is no personal note. There is no invitation to reconcile. There is only the document, and at the bottom, her signature, the same last name, claimed on her own terms. Vivian never becomes the story she could have told. She does not grant the tearful interview. She does not publish a memoir or appear on a morning show. When healthcare journalists in Philadelphia and New York begin connecting the dots, the surname, the records, the East Wing plaque, she neither confirms nor denies. She returns their calls through her communications director, who offers a single comment on her behalf, read aloud in a flat, professional voice into a dozen different voicemails. Dr. Caldwell's work speaks for itself. It does. In the 12 months following the Caldwell's discharge, the fund serves 847 children. The Eleanor Moss Pediatric Care Center expands its capacity by 30%. The hospital network, already profitable, channels an additional $22 million of its surplus into the Charity Care Reserve, more than any comparable private hospital group in the state. And on the wall of Vivian's office on the 16th floor, above a desk that faces the window and the corner of Merritt Avenue and 5th, there is still a photograph. A 9-year-old girl, alone in a plastic chair, holding a brown paper bag. The coat is 2 sizes too large. The girl is not crying. She is watching the door, not waiting for someone to come back through it, watching to see what she will become when she walks out of it herself.